Doing great. This is how this.
Listen, this is the first episode post-election. I got my COVID booster yesterday, and so I'm just like all over sore and exhausted. So, only good things. It bodes good things.
I spent all morning Monday fighting squirrels and wasps in my attic.
Welcome to Cult Favorite, the podcast that includes the ingredients in its meal plan service. I'm Miranda Simmons.
And I'm Mike Altman. We are two religious studies professors trying to understand all of these cult documentaries that you can't stop binge watching. And before we start, we have a comment.
I know that makes you so happy.
We have a comment on Spotify. Craig said, I'm really enjoying the show. And that's with an exclamation point.
Okay.
So thanks, Craig,
for making Mike happy. Oh my God.
And I will read other comments that are left.
You'll comment on the commenting. But today we're going to talk about Escaping Twin Flames, another documentary with no subtitle.
Yeah.
I'm enjoying this little mini streak that we have 2 in a row now.
2 in a row
with no subtitle. And they did have a meal plan that made you pay separately for the ingredients, which is annoying.
Divine Dish, which is a great name, actually.
Kind of. Anyway, what did you know about Twin Flames?
I didn't know anything. I had heard about it, in different places, but I did not know anything about Twin Flames. So
me neither.
This was all new to me.
Yeah, new to me too. But it's a good time to talk about it because November 13 through 19, as of this recording, it's November 13. But it's Transgender Awareness Week, and that's going to be important to this conversation of what we're aware of, how we're aware of it, and what we sometimes ignore or just sideline completely.
Yeah. There's a whole, we'll get there.
Yep.
We will get there. All right.
Give us a synopsis.
So 5 minutes a 5 minute
of Gnostic
synopsis.
Gospels.
5 minutes of Gnostic synopsis, in case you haven't watched it yet. So it was a 2023 release on Netflix, and the co-creators were Inbal Lesnar and Cecilia Peck. Cecilia Peck also was a director. I bring them up because they also co-created Seduced Inside the NXIVM Cult, which does have a subtitle, in 2020. And I'll put a link to an interview with them. They very much see themselves in these two docuseries as sort of like unmasking modern cults in a certain way.
Sure.
So this is a 3 episodes on Netflix. And so it's a nice sort of 3-act story.
You like the 3 acts?
I do.
Okay.
It's a good, I'm very, Aristotelian.
Yeah.
Act 1, building a cult online. So this is where we start with our white woman in peril, which is
another trope that you paid a lot of attention to.
A trope that I invented.
Sure.
Didn't stop Joseph Campbell. Won't stop. All right. So, and you have these twin sisters, Paula and Stephanie. And it's a great place to start because they're actual twins. They're actual twin sisters. So we meet them and Stephanie, who is, by the end of the documentary, is still in the Twin Flames universe.
Mm-hmm.
We also meet our cult leaders, Jeff and Shalia, who go through a variety of names, which we're used to. That's like a cult leader thing, is just changing names. And then we really get them sort of building up this thing called the Twin Flames universe. Jeff, we hear these stories about, he's sort of this early grifter type. He has a couple other ventures he tries. He's a lifestyle design guru. And then Shalia has her own kind of new age guru vibe, tarot cards over the internet deal, because they have nothing to do with this documentary. They don't talk to anybody. They don't do any interviews. So we don't get a lot about other than their narrations of how they met. Their past is sort of shrouded in those ways. But what they kind of put forward as a couple is this: they taking an existing new age notion of the twin flames and sort of using it to create their own what they call Twin Flame Universe, which is this Facebook group with a forum, and then on top of that, a series of classes and a book they write, and just a general sort of world of self-help, self-actualization paraphernalia
by way of romantic connection.
by way
that,
of
like
yeah.
two people share a soul.
Yeah.
That's why you're a twin flame. Was that that's a new age thing? I don't know anything about.
Yeah, I didn't have time
That was already
to dig in it too far, but that was
Okay.
that was out there in the world already.
okay.
So they're kind
they
of
didn't invent the concept.
No.
They just did their own thing.
they
with
just
it.
did their own thing with
Oh,
it.
interesting.
And
Okay.
I think that's a decision the documentary made to not like dive into
Mhm,
that,
mhm.
which is interesting. All right, the aspects of this whole twin flame universe, you have the classes, but it also has a nice like MLM mode to it where you have coaches of various hierarchies that you pay for these classes to go through. They also pay to become coaches. And so there's this sort of pyramid scheme to it.
Mm.
There's within that the kind of major teaching, like the thing,
Mhm.
because a lot of these have, their go-to practice is the mirror exercise. And so the mirror exercise is sort of the work you're supposed to do on yourself to attract your twin flame.
Which is the ultimate goal.
Yes,
is
the ultimate goal.
finding-
There's only
You're
one.
there to find your twin flame.
Your twin flame. There's
Yep.
only one
Yep.
in the universe.
Yep.
God makes them for you, created them for you. And
I mean, sounds familiar with a lot of religious groups that I've heard of, but fine. Keep going.
yeah, I mean, this is
It doesn't sound weird
this
so
is
far.
not that different from
I mean, it sounds weird to me,
basic
but
purity culture. Like
yes,
God has someone out there for you.
Right.
You will find them.
sounds weird to me, but it
If
doesn't
you
sound different.
Make bad choices.
Sure.
Pray for your children's spouse ahead of time.
Anyway,
Okay,
okay. So the mirror exercise.
So the
I'm
mirror
sorry. I
exercise,
got you.
you replace. So any emotion or feeling you're feeling, you say it out loud and then you repeat it, but you
Mhm.
replace yourself with every other subject position in the statement. So
Mhm.
instead of like I'm mad at Miranda, I now say I'm mad at myself because I'm not really mad at you. I'm mad at me.
Obviously. Who
I
could
need
be?
to do the work. Yeah, exactly. I need to do the work on myself.
Right.
So the way you attract your twin flame is by healing, and healing has that's the verb that carries a lot of different meanings
Mm.
in this world. You heal yourself, you love yourself,
Mhm.
and then you'll be able to be loved by somebody else and
Mhm.
love someone else.
Right.
So it is sort of taking RuPaul's catchphrase and weaponizing it. You can't mirror yourself. How the hell are you going to mirror somebody else?
This is good, Mike. You've already talked about people as cult leaders, and then you said that something was co-opted. So I'm gonna have no pushback whatsoever. Which is great.
I am knee deep in authenticity right now.
Oh, it's good. Buckle in, everybody. Okay.
And then, all right. So the other thing that comes out of this too is Jeff and Shalia, they have the ability to channel your twin flame.
Mm.
So they can bring your twin flame into your life. They can also identify your twin flame.
Convenient.
Yes, it's nice. And so there's the idea that like, if you do these classes, they will tell you how to attract your twin flame. And then they
Mhm.
can also, through these classes, both sort of like authenticate that person is
Mhm.
really your twin flame. And then once that's the case, that is your person and you must pursue them no matter what
Mhm.
until they are yours and you have a harmonious union, which is the goal, is to reach harmonious union.
And if they say, no, I'd rather not, you are to not listen to them.
They are, yes. Why would you let that stop you?
Consent, schmensent.
Well, and we keep saying classes.
Yeah.
These are all online.
Yeah.
These are all online, like live video classes.
Mhm.
This is there is no in the documentary. There is no twin flame compound. There is no location.
Right.
There's only a few in person meetups, and they
Mhm.
throughout the documentary. So, like, I think this is sort of the larger context of this. Is this is all happening almost in a kind of like telemedicine,
Mhm.
BetterHelp,
Mhm.
like online therapy mode.
Yeah. So even though we don't get an interview with Jeff and Shalia, we see them a bunch. Like there are
Yes.
videos galore. So,
Yes,
yeah.
and I was like, where did all these videos come from? And then we'll get an
Yeah,
episode 2 opens with a giant hard drive full of all of the videos. So in the first episode, we get a kind of a few of the main people they're going to follow throughout, sort of starting all these sort of story arcs. So you have Keely and Colby. Keely finds twin flames after a breakup, and Colby just sort of shows up in her life.
Well, he was the breakup,
Oh, that's right.
right?
Forgot to write that down. Yeah, he was the breakup, and they got back together.
She couldn't stop thinking about him.
That's right.
It was part of the thing. Like, a lot of these people are like, we break up. I'm really sad about it. I can't stop thinking about them. And it's like, well, you can't stop thinking about them because they're your twin flame. Like, that
Right.
is evidence of like your obsession that just needs a little bit of time and space is actually evidentiary of twin flame
Yeah.
status.
Yeah.
And so you got to go.
Right. And
Yeah.
so they become like the first marriage, like the first twin flames harmonious union.
That we, yeah.
And then the other characters we meet or people we meet is Marley, probably
Keely's sister.
yes, Keely's sister, who is like 18 or 19 when this all starts.
Mhm.
And gets a message from a stranger on Facebook.
He's part of the twin flame universe, I
Yes.
think, right? That's why.
Yes, he's
but
part of the
yeah.
universe. He messages her, and they're like, "That's your twin flame." And turns out he's a really problematic person.
Mhm.
Has his own issues to work through, and it's signaled the storytelling in the documentary I think is very well done, because there's a moment where they're at the first sort of in-person event that they have for the Twin Flames universe,
Mhm.
and Marley's like, that's where Marley first gets the message, and they say he's your twin flame, and then you
Mhm.
have this like follow-up interviews with her where she's talking to Jeff, and she's like, well, are you with him? He's like, well, he can't really leave the state because he's on probation for
Right.
11 months.
Right.
And you're like, whoa, wait a
Right.
second.
Right.
This is very ominous.
Mhm.
And then we also meet Elle, who is the sort of example of when that message of pursue your twin flame at all costs goes haywire, as her twin flame executes an restraining order against her, and then she violates it multiple times
Mhm.
and eventually ends up in jail.
Because she keeps being told you should text anyway, you should reach out
Right.
anyway. If he is blocking you, then that's just your block that you need to
Right.
get over.
And I don't know what your sense of this was. I got a sense that even as she's narrating the story,
Mhm.
like she's not in a space where she can be honest with herself. And
Mhm.
there's this moment. So she says, like, I happen to be in the same club as
Right.
him. And I'm like, actually, I
Right.
don't know if I believe
What are
that or
the
not.
odds? Sure.
But then in a they show a class that she's in with Jeff where he's like, what do you mean you happen to be there? Like
Sure.
they basically like fill her up with this sort of like
Mhm.
this, like, you have to go find your twin flame message, just
Mhm.
almost creates this almost stalker like behavior that she
Mhm.
starts pursuing. And then he turns around on her and is like, it's your fault. You're not being honest with me. Were you
Sure.
really just there on accident? And like, it was just, yes, horrifying.
Yeah.
The last thing you get out of this first episode and kind of where it's headed by the end is like the really dumb gender roles. So like,
As opposed to which gender roles that are smart, Michael, tell me about those.
well, my point was just
I told you, I'm coming in hot today.
I'm
I
gonna
don't know. I had my COVID booster yesterday. I'm feeling
I'm going to sidestep
feeling
that
sore.
bear trap and say the next thing in my notes, which was patriarchy can be new age too.
Yes, that's true.
And so there's this idea that like twin flame sex is supposed to be amazing, but also like on demand, especially for men. And so you're beginning to see like by the end of episode 1 that this is headed to some sort of weird space around sex and gender.
Mhm.
And that weird space is what happens in part 2. So the second episode, we get introduced to a few more characters. Angie, who gets involved after that first in-person meeting. But we get basically, it's the growth of the Twin Flames universe and then the kind of cracks that begin to form in it by the end. So you have a bunch of new things, and they kind of tease this like something about the divine masculine and the divine feminine.
Mhm.
One of the Elle has a hard drive. Was it Elle or Keely?
Keely.
Keely has the hard drive that she left with that has like all of everything Twin Flames has ever
I
produced.
think somebody sent it to her. I can't remember, but
Yeah.
Keely's the one who ends up with it. Yeah.
And she talks about, and it has even the deleted videos, like the divine masculine, divine feminine. And so this is sort of our Chekhov's gender lecture that will go off by the end of the episode. And then they introduce a number of new things. They introduce MAP, the mind alignment process, which they don't say where these people come from, but they bring in like an ex-military person named Chrissy K, who basically takes this MAP process, which is a kind of PTSD trauma, quote unquote, treatment, but kind of like actually torture, where she has people sort of reliving their traumatic moments in these certain ways. They also introduce their own daily diet program, like a food prep program called Divine Dish, which like is not like Green Aprons where they send you the food. They just send you the recipes and you have to go get the ingredients yourself. And they're all very starch based. It's just it's
to be grounded, to be like it's like heavy food so that you'll be grounded in your body, aware of your body on the earth. I don't know.
It's just red meat and carbs. On top of that, they also Jeff, who again, grifter from the beginning, wants to be a millionaire. He's like, hey, we should just do a church. So they invent the Church of Union as a way to avoid taxation.
Well, and so that he doesn't have to pay people; they can just volunteer.
Right. So if we're a church,
like Hillsong.
Yeah. We also get the introduction of a few experts in this episode. Yanya Lalish, who we've seen in a callback all the way back to our episode on Heaven's Gate. And then also, and really interesting, as they start to talk about gender, we also get introduced to Cassius Adair. They show up because of the end of the episode. You have this moment where Stephanie, the twin sister from that we started this all with, is paired with Kieran. And there's this idea that they're now pairing people within the group twin flame pairings, and then asking one member of the pairing to transition their gender. And so this is like both of the first two episodes end with a kind of cliffhanger that leads into the next one.
Because most of the people in the group are women.
Yes.
They are starting to, instead of identifying a twin flame like from your own life, that you say, I'm interested in this person. Instead, it's Jeff and Shalia creating flames from within.
Right. The first two episodes are kind of like 2015, 2016, all the way to 2019, where Act 3 starts, the last episode, which is really, I called it the mothers and children, because this is the kind of theme that I imagine was in the editor's room as they were putting this together. But it opens with 2019. They make 20 new pairings within the group of mostly, at that point, like cis women and cis women. There were some LGBT couples that came into the group or were formed in the group.
But they don't believe that homosexuality exists. Like they don't believe you can be gay because you necessarily have to either embody the divine masculine or the divine feminine.
And this is where that lecture on the divine feminine and the divine masculine comes in, because the idea is like every twin flame couple has a masculine, has a feminine, and if that's not your actual gender, then it actually you're wrong.
Then you need to be. The thing is, in order, if you're divine masculine or divine feminine, you have to then like have a name and pronouns that correspond with that gender identification.
Yeah.
So it's not just a like spiritual category of like masculine, capital M, some kind of swirling abstraction.
Right.
That's a swirling abstraction, but then there are some real consequences that they want you to adopt.
In contrast to, say, like, various Hindu ways of thinking about the divine as having a masculine and a feminine. This is not that. And it sort of slowly transforms, where initially the question comes up about like lesbian couples that are in the group. And they're like, well, one of them's really the masculine. And then it goes to like, no, one of them, someone has to actually be the man.
Right.
And so eventually by 2019, you have this group, these new pairings, and this new emphasis on sort of the divine masculine and feminine as someone's true, quote unquote, true gender identity. And then the call to, from beginning with names and pronouns to full on sort of physical transitions and even like surgeries by the
Yeah.
end. And this is where you bring in we had Stephanie and Stephanie's mother from the very beginning of the
Louise. Mhm.
and yeah, from the very beginning. And then now we bring in a whole group of mothers who talk about their children. And these are all mothers of children whose children in the group have transitioned, and just doing their best to both like respect what the gender identities of their children, but are also hurt and frustrated and not communicating with their children.
I
So it's,
mean, one of them did kick their kid out of the house.
yeah, okay,
Yeah. Like, yes, I hear you. I mean, there were 3 mothers that we
Yeah.
see kind of create their own community. And yes, it was not like in Holy Hell
right,
where Will's mom says, her kids came back and they said, here are our names, or here. And she's like, nope, that's not what I named
right.
you. That's not what I'm going to call you. It's not like that. They are trying to, yes, be respectful of their pronouns.
I
There
took
is
that
a,
differently. I didn't
yeah,
take that as being kicked out of that. I took that as being overwhelmed in the moment with both the transition and the cultiness of it all, and
I think
being like, I need a minute,
no,
and they just
100%.
didn't come back.
I think a lot of homophobic parents are overwhelmed in a moment.
I don't think it was about the
I'm not
transition.
I mean, I'm not saying that I know her and her intentions. I'm just saying that, like, I think that I don't think that any action or choice is born in a vacuum. That's all.
Yeah, no, I get that.
I think that that's in my little section. Well,
Yeah,
this
we'll
is
get there.
this is a preview of coming conversational attractions. Over.
So the mothers begin to go public in a few ways online.
Yeah.
And then Jeff files a lawsuit against one of them. We also get a section that is about the quote unquote golden children. So the children that come out of twin flames, harmonious unions are known as golden children. And then we get this interesting story path on Jeff and Shalia's like ongoing desire for a child,
It
and
kind of came out of nowhere, but
Yeah.
apparently it was present from day one with them in the group. Like that was a little, the time progression of that was a little wonky.
Trying to keep Jeff's hair
Sure.
style as
Sure,
a way
sure.
to gauge the time period.
Right. He grows it out.
Yeah, if you watch the documentary, you'll see what I'm talking about. The dude has a whole different levels of hair and beard situation.
Mm.
But the 2019, the new pairings thing is like a big turning point. A bunch of people leave. And at the very end of this episode of the whole documentary, you get the kind of like all the different people they've interviewed and when they left. And a huge number of them were 2019. Like the majority of them were 2019. And then this is the point around which Keely has her realization. She's asked to go and research the founder of Nexium by Jeff in hopes that she will then prove that Twin Flames is not a cult. And in fact, in that process is like, oh, this is totally a cult. And that's when her eyes are open. She says, and she gets out and leaves. And what's interesting, again, this is all happening online on Facebook groups. Like there's very little physical contact between these people. It's all video chats and Zoom calls and Google Hangouts. And so like the dramatic exit is people unfriending Jeff and blocking, leaving the Facebook group. So she then goes to Utah to rescue Marley from her twin flame in just a very not a very toxic situation. The Keely also connects with Yanya Lelich over TikTok, and then more and more people leave, and we sort of get the downfall of of the group.
And Keely and Marley are still, at least as of the documentary, estranged because Marley was so aware of, and I mean, Keely is now aware of her own role in the abuse of like just emotional abuse and mental manipulation, because Keely became like you said, I mean, she was one of the early harmonious, like early people in a harmonious union. And so she also then became really high in the ranks, was a coach for a lot of folks, etc.
We do get a reunion between Angie and Keely,
Mm-hmm.
because Angie had turned to Keely as her coach,
Mm-hmm.
and then Angie actually was sort of forced to transition into a man at one point, and then sort of has come out the other side of it as she's
Mm-hmm.
left. But we get this sort of on camera tearful reunion between the two of them,
Mm-hmm.
and sort of apologies, and I'm sorry what I did, and I know that you
Yeah.
didn't do it. Yanya Lalich has this point that she says a couple times that comes up kind of is evidenced in that exchange between Angie and Keely of like everyone in a cult is a perpetrator.
Mm-hmm.
And the idea being that there's no way to get out without feeling some sort of guilt. That's what holds you in because you're forced to do things that are harmful to others just by being in the group, and that then keeps you there and then makes you not want to leave because you feel guilty about it. And so that's sort of what's going on in
Yeah.
that conversation with Angie and Keely is a kind of like
Mm-hmm.
recognition of that by Angie.
Because that's part of Lalish's own story as well. Like the group that she was part of, that was part of her own
Yeah.
process as well, kind of realizing her own complicity.
And it ends with an interesting statistic about I wrote 1,000, but I think it was 10,000.
It says 10,000. That I wrote down that ending because I, of course, from my own perspective, have specific read of it. But it says there are over 10,000 cults currently operating in the U.S., and the number of internet-based cults since the pandemic is rapidly increasing. I thought it was interesting to say that there are 10,000 cults and that the number of internet-based cults is rapidly increasing with zero definition of what cult means. But
so what do you what do you expect from the filmmakers?
I don't expect it from the filmmakers. I just want to, tease it out with you and me.
All right. Well, what do you want to talk about, Miranda?
I mean, I do think Cassius Adair's presence in the documentary is super useful. He's a scholar and media producer, teaches media studies at the New School. He was a voice of analytical reason in relation to gender identification, presentation, coercion. And so he said at one point that he was afraid, like what worries him about this story of the twin flames, and this group in general, is that it will confirm for people that transness is a kind of cult.
Right.
They didn't spend a ton of time on that point, but I was really glad that they included it in the documentary because this all to me seems like, again, take nothing away from like the very, very real and complicated layers of hurt that multiple people experienced on all sorts of levels. But the group itself, Jeff and Shalia, seemed to me just kind of a boring story of a straight couple who project their gender and sexual norms onto other people for profit. And so, and they do so with messages like homosexuality doesn't exist and everyone is essentially male or female or masculine or feminine, or that your only purpose in life is to find romantic partnership, etc. And so if only we thought that was actually legit awful, because I see people doing that all the time.
Yeah.
And so again, it's like, it's not that it's not terrible. It's that actual behavior of like a hetero reproductive monogamous couple, like trying to live their best lives and make lots of money and then project that on other people. Like
that's a lot of these.
It's so much. And so I literally just today on the New York Times, there is a like write-in question or whatever about what's the ideal outfit for your first date. And it's here's I kept it up on my phone so that I could show it because it's everywhere. Most likely you want to look as if you've made an effort, but not too much of an effort. You want to look casual, but not too casual. You also don't want to wear anything that could predispose whoever you're meeting to leap into stereotype conclusions about who you are, because that's somehow on the person trying to get dressed, and it's all very gendered feminine. Because I mean, whatever.
I think this is how I think before the first day of class.
The person, oh my God, the person who wrote in is called Jillian, but like, who cares? Just because Jillian asked this question doesn't mean that the entire piece needs to be about what women are wearing. It just, the whole thing of like, I wish that we as a society were horrified at, straight sexual and gender norms being projected onto everyone, every moment, everywhere. Like, I wish. But it's only when we can put them into a framework called cult that it becomes a thing that warrants any kind of attention at all.
Right.
And I think that those gender and sexual norms are really damaging and have lots of harm in their own rights and lots of abuses that are perpetrated every single day. But again, we don't see that as abuse. We just see it as Tuesday.
Every Tuesday, there are people feeling that harm, feeling the harm of that abuse, right? Like
10,000%.
So, yeah.
So I was glad to have Adair's perspective, because I thought that he was really the only space where there was a bit of a meta conversation about, like at one point he says, it's not impossible that there were cis people who realized they're trans after joining Twin Flames, but then what the language that they were using was like, I want to get closer to who I'm supposed to be, rather than like, I want to get closer to who I am.
Yeah.
And so there should not be a supposed to be to gender. And that's true. So like, I'm really glad that his voice was there. It's just, also on the New York Times, here's how you're supposed to dress on your first.
What am I supposed to wear? But that to me is how these groups find a space in which to operate.
Oh, for sure.
They operate in the spaces of the supposed
that already
to be,
exist,
right?
Yes,
like there's something about, like, this is one of the things I wrote down, was that the language of, faith, true love, salvation, the work. We can talk about that for a second. But these words that are so vague in what they what they mean in a given situation, they're just ripe to be sort of used to make people feel like they lack something, and then here I am with the solution for $20,000 or whatever, and so
just patriarchy's been doing that forever.
Well, yeah, I mean, yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
No, totally. I'm agreeing with you. I know it doesn't look like I'm agreeing.
I was like, that wasn't a statement in favor of patriarchy.
I know. I'm agreeing with you. It is. And I do think that, like,
Miranda, are you mad at me or are you mad at Miranda?
I mean, most of the time, but yeah, because the patriarchal framework is so encompassing, they have an easy space to walk into and take cues from. Yes, like they are products of the very thing that then they are reproducing.
With the history they give us of Jeff before this, it seems to me that he just recognized this is the marketplace for this, and away we go.
Yeah.
Like, I think this is the story of all of these in some ways, right? Like the exploitation of the tax code, of a culture of true love, of a culture of body shaming and fat phobia, is what produces the group that gets the documentary that we all are, horrified by. And I feel like we're constantly trying to point attention back to like, no. But the thing that's happening that opened up this space, like we could also talk about that.
Yes.
Right?
And also it is not at all any kind of coincidence that in many of these groups, the people that are being exploited by and large are, or just attracted to the group in the first place, are women.
Yeah.
So, the people bearing the onus of Gwen Shamblin's message,
Right.
even though it was of, there are lots of men in the church, but the people bearing the onus of the message are women. The people who are getting fucked by MLMs are women who feel like they need to stay
Yeah.
home and be with their children. The people who are in twin flames in the first place are women who are told that they need to have a romantic partner in their life in order to have any meaning.
Mhm.
And so there's nothing wrong with like looking for romantic partners, whatever. But like the specific narrative that comes with, the meaning that it gives your life, the like message that you're a piece of shit if you don't have it, like that is a very gendered female message.
Yeah. I'm sitting here thinking as you say that, like, we've not really seen a group that was a majority straight cis male group.
Correct.
That's
Because they've already got what they need. This is the thing is like Jim Jones may not have had a space to step into if people were already getting
right.
housing and healthcare.
Yeah, I mean,
and so the people who
yeah.
like need community and the people who are under resourced are necessarily going to be the people who then are like targeted and find really compelling places
Mhm.
that are going to offer them a sense of community. It was men who were getting exploited in the Buddha field,
Yeah.
but the appeal to people in the first place in Buddha field
Mhm.
was multifaceted. It's just that this guy was preying
Mhm.
specifically on, his male parishioners.
Yeah, there were men in Heaven's Gate.
Sure.
But
none of that was about gender.
that keeps well, no, that
Right?
keeps standing out as that
Yes.
keeps standing. It might not be the cult of cults after all, because when there are men in a lot of these groups, they are given some sort of lieutenant status, and so there's a power attraction there.
Scientology.
Right.
Right.
It's not, it's not the same thing as Scientology.
I mean, all of them are performing patriarchy in specific ways. I think that there are ways too. I mean, this goes back a little bit to what we were talking about before with the moms, like, and it is. I am being, I don't know. I'm trying to tease out some nuance. I'm not just saying that like the moms were this way or whatever, but what we maintain regarding patriarchy and social norms when we make like the family capital F and
Mhm.
implicitly necessary good
Mhm.
is its own thing that I don't think we talk a lot about with these documentaries, because so much of the evidence of like why there's something creepy going on is that people set boundaries with their families.
Mhm.
That could be a sign of something that's manipulative or not cool, but there are also a lot of families that aren't secure spaces. And
Yeah.
in these documentaries, it is often the case that we will hear only the family's side of the story, and the tragedy is about their loss
Right.
of their child or their, instead of like what is happening to the person in the group. Like we'll get hearsay about it or whatever. And I'm not trying to say like nothing's actually going on, chill out everybody. That's not it at all.
Right.
It just, there is an implicit message though inside of the positioning of the family as like ground zero for safety, protection,
Mhm.
unconditional love.
Yeah.
That then as soon as you leave the family,
Yeah.
you are embarking on this really dangerous cult journey.
Right.
And it's like,
Well,
that's patriarchy too.
These documentaries are often really about what a family is supposed to be in a lot of ways, or what
Yeah.
a particular idealization of the family. I mean, shoot, like here we are we're a week and a day after the election, and like the amount of quick turn to how do people going to do with their families? Like I was at an event like Thursday or Friday, or sometime this weekend, and like everyone wanted to talk about who they were or were not speaking to in their family.
Mm.
And so it was just like, the fact that that was the immediate conversation piece of like, who am I going to talk to? Not like, not am I going to change doctors? Not am I
Yeah,
going to
yeah, yeah,
change,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
and it just speaks to both the power,
Yes.
the kind of cultural weight, but then the assumed centrality.
Mm-hmm.
But the people, and there are people who were estranged from their family before the election who are like, it's kind of the same. Like, I wasn't going to talk to them anyways.
Welcome to the space where you realize that maybe the people who are supposed to unconditionally love you are not the safe space that you thought they were.
Right.
Maybe they are not advocating for your rights as a human. I think it's cool that Ray's mom realizes that she shouldn't have kicked him out. Like, she does have, like, I wish that yep. She says, I wish I didn't. But I also, kind of appreciated the person from behind the camera saying, because she was like, he just left. And the producers, like, or whoever's interviewing is like, but you told him to leave, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, yes, but I wish I didn't. I mean, sure, yes, I believe you. At first, Stephanie's mom was okay with her being in the group because she was talking about God. I just feel like this is, in so many ways, I'm not saying that it's all it is, but I think in so many ways, this story is about a straight couple trying to live their own best life and taking it out on other people. Jeff's dude energy is something I find really exhausting.
He's not even a good speaker.
But again, I think a lot of people find bravado and blustery dude energy compelling.
Yeah. I don't know.
And when we identify it as such and when we don't,
right,
I guess is always my,
and I don't know what was in the classes,
but I'm not straight, so I don't like so I'm coming here from a very specific perspective where it all just seems like a big question mark of like, what? I don't get it. But I do get it.
Though. That's exactly what. No, but that's such a helpful. It's such a helpful location from which to view these, because so with, like, one of the things you don't get in the documentary, and maybe it's in the classes, is what was so special about their relationship.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Like, and so I don't get, like, that was there was just a whole thing where I'm like, I just don't understand.
Mm-hmm.
Are they a sort of cipher that everyone projects their perfect relationship on?
Mm-hmm.
Because, yeah, I was like, what's so great about your, like, what do you have? Like, I don't,
I think initially, like, that the origin story was, that Shalia was very direct. She
Right.
said, I don't know, something about like, are you horny or whatever in their messaging. And the fact that they didn't really know each other that well. And she was just out there with herself and what she wanted. And was something that then, like, I mean, and then she's not like a very strong voice in.
Right. So,
right.
But I don't think, I think that's all. I think that entire story is fake. Because that is
maybe your attention to kayfabe makes you particularly keen to identify what is and is not real. I wonder.
No, 100%.
Because I just don't.
Or not. Nothing's real.
I don't know that I even care. I just.
But I'll tell you. I'll tell you why I think it's important that it's fake.
Yeah.
Because the story you just narrated, of the very direct woman who texts you, "Are you horny?" But then once you marry her, becomes very quiet and passive.
Yeah.
Is like, that is like the patriarchal dream.
Well, yeah.
Straight, right? And so, like,
exactly.
That's why I think it's fake. Like, that's the product they're selling.
I agree with you. I just feel like the patriarchal dream, but this probably isn't even like something that is different from what you're saying. The patriarchal dream it's an illusion, but it's very real.
Right. Yes.
It's, it's playing out all the time with some pretty, like, dramatic consequences. So she now is the, like, vessel for the golden child that they're going to have.
So but it's sort of like it's the manic pixie dream girl like lifestyle that you two can have.
Mm-hmm.
I'm thinking this on the air, which is always risky, but like, I could see that working as a market for dudes like Jeff in the world. But maybe it's the same as a product. I'm surprised that it was so attractive to the number of women. Although when you see the videos, there are a third men in the audience. we don't hear from any of them.
Yeah, we
That
don't
was
hear
one of
from
my
any of
questions.
them.
Is like, where
Yeah.
are all these men that we see in
Right.
these videos
Right.
in the audiences and stuff?
Well, and literally after he tells that story of or, the messaging that they're doing back and forth, like he immediately says that he had never experienced that in all of his years of babe hunting, and that this kooky chick, blah 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 blah, and it's just like, man,
I was waiting. I guess what I was waiting for and never came, and maybe it's there somewhere. And I just it's. Do you know who Liver King is?
No.
Okay, so Liver King was this guy. You could not stand 5
Should I?
seconds of this.
Okay.
No.
It's a good thing I don't
Liver
know.
King
Okay.
is this guy on YouTube who was advocating a particular kind of like Paleolithic lifestyle
Ugh.
where you're supposed to like simulate hunts. And so he's like never got a
Yawn.
shirt on, but he's like just jacked, just
Yawn.
ripped guy.
Sure.
And he's always like doing these simulated hunts, and he has all these supplements he's selling, and it's all
you know
natural.
what Paleolithic humans didn't have? Their
life after
their
40.
80s.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like I don't. It's
So,
whatever.
okay, but yeah,
It's fine,
yeah.
It's fine.
So he's pitching this, right? This like
Sure.
kind of all natural. Blah, blah, blah.
Sure.
And then it comes out that the man is taking a shit ton of steroids, and
Sure.
that's why he's
I
ripped.
thought you were about to say it's just he's taking a shit. I was,
No.
like,
But like that,
that's the YouTube like.
no. That was not the. But like the ripped guy who's only doing
Yeah,
meat
sure,
and
sure,
whatever
sure,
and berries
sure, of
is
course.
actually on an insane amount of
Yeah,
steroids.
duh.
So I was waiting for the Liver King moment here,
I see.
right? Like the revelation somewhere in there that like, I
Jeff
don't-
was having lots of affairs.
yes,
or something.
or they're horrible, they hate each other,
I see.
or they're screaming like something.
Yeah.
But we never got it.
Yeah.
But in my head, it's there somewhere, and like they're like, this is the Liver King of true love, right? And like, I don't know, I found it very uncomfortable.
Okay, wait. I'm sorry. So why is it important though to distinguish between what's real and fake?
I don't think it is.
Oh,
Well,
okay.
I think it's important to identify when the fabricated product being sold,
Mm.
which I think is their marriage
Mhm.
or Liver King's body or whatever. I don't think there is anything real. I think
Mhm.
it's all levels of fabric of
Yeah.
right.
Okay.
Like that's what I
Oh yeah, I just Google image this dude. Wow.
I don't think it's about saying like this is fake and this is real. Like there's some real marriage out there that's actually true love, and these people
Okay.
are faking it. I think it's just important to note like it's the purposes and the ways these things get deployed. And then it made me feel really bad for like all of my reality television choices that are based around notions of true love. Because I realized
This is what did that for you?
well, no, what did it for me was your comments about like,
I never set out to.
the real harm happening here
I know
is not, is Tuesday. And oh my God.
my students have told me that I'm not great for their enjoyment of romantic comedies. I didn't mean to. I didn't.
It's not
I
gonna
don't
stop
wanna-
me. It's
Okay,
fine.
good.
No.
I don't want to ruin reality TV or romantic comedies. Okay, but to your point with what is one thing versus another and whether we can distinguish it,
Yeah.
I have a game
Okay.
that I want us to play
Okay.
because this is what I hope. We'll see if it works. But like
Last time we tried a game, we ended up cutting it.
that's
You
true.
texted me, cut the game. It
That's
didn't
true.
work. We'll see how this one goes.
True.
No one will
I
ever.
think-
No one will ever hear that one.
That's true. Oh man. I think that again, it's not that twin flames isn't harmful. I just don't think it's special or unique
Yeah.
either. So here's the game. I have sentences from the Twin Flames Universe website, and I also have sentences from random religious dating sites.
Okay.
And I want you to tell me which one is from Twin Flames
Okay.
and which one is from random religious dating site.
All right.
Okay. The desire for our one true love is intrinsic to our innermost being.
That's from any random religious dating site.
Wrong. Twin Flames.
Oh.
We connect you with others who share your faith and values and provide the community and resources for your whole relationship journey.
That's not twin flame.
Correct.
Okay.
Whether you're looking for love locally or internationally, we are committed to helping you find the perfect match, no matter where in the world they may be.
That's Twin Flames.
Wrong.
Oh. Wait, internet. There's a Christian dating site that's
Yep.
going to help me find my love internationally.
I didn't write down what they are, but my algorithm is already messed up so bad by this game. Like I just so okay. Join our community today and discover the power of faith-based connections.
That's not Twin Flames, right?
Correct.
Okay. Faith-based connections.
We wanted this to be a place of community for people who can feel rather marginalized in church.
Ooh. Is that Twin Flame?
Incorrect.
Oh.
In order to help you manifest a spiritual love that transcends the conventional romantic relationships offered by society today, you'll need to take a spiritual journey.
I just want to manifest like some normal love.
I'm making a point here.
That's Twin Flames. There's a lot of language. Twin Flames?
Correct.
Okay.
We're here to tell you that it's not for the lucky or special. It's not impossible, and you can have the romance of your wildest dreams.
I'm feeling hopeful at the end of this, at the very least. That's Twin Flames.
Correct.
Okay.
Now they're living happily ever after.
That's Twin Flame?
It's a trick question. That's both.
Oh. I would have thought they would have said harmonious union.
And the thing is, those are just from random religious dating sites.
Right.
But I think that you could do the same thing with anything from straight culture.
Okay. Yes. All right. This gets to what I want to talk about. Okay. Actually, so which is like, I feel like this is the best cult we've come across in the sense of
what that means.
in that, like, these are the like for whatever else they're terrible at, like Jeff and Shalia, and we don't get in. I want to know more about how they did this, because they have built a cult that has, if we want to call it that, whatever.
I don't. I just want to call it Tuesday.
No, but they've recognized Tuesday.
Yeah.
And they've monetized it and branded it.
Sure.
And cut it off enough such that other people can't stop them from ratcheting it up. Right? Like when I go through that list of all that they made a church, they made a meal service where like people were like, they did this without having any physical contact with people. They made them eat what they told them to the point that they gained weight and had health issues.
You don't think the internet does that in other ways?
I'm sure it does. No, like I'm sure it does.
Yeah. I'm
sure it does it to me in ways I don't even understand.
Yeah.
Yes. But that's my point. They recognized all of these places that could be pushed on, and like pushed and pushed and pushed in order to make a crap ton of money and have a crap ton of power in these people's lives. And there's a sort of, I guess a lot of the other cults, whatever, group documentaries you've seen, they often feel like we started, like, so go back to Lula Rich, the last one.
Yeah.
It's like we did this and then it grew and it's very like thrown together. We're making it up as we go. Like I actually believe them that they didn't know what they were doing as they were doing it, right? Like they knew they were.
They don't even know their address.
Right. Like they're greedy assholes, but like they weren't like planned. Like, but this is sort of, I think, interesting in that they have really, it's incredibly efficient in its exploitation of the social and cultural levers that they can use to enrich themselves at other people's expense.
Yes. Do you think though then that the only, like, I wonder if they're doing a thing that was unique or special, or whether we just have a documentary series about them, and so we think that it's unique and special.
I think you're right.
Because like pulling the levers of, whatever systemic forces in order to like create power and make lots of money, like that sounds like a venture capitalist to me.
Yes, I think you're right.
So, why are I don't know.
I guess I'm thinking in comparison to the other groups that get these documentaries made about them.
Yeah.
Right? Like, yeah.
That belong to that 10,000 number that
Right.
we don't know
Yeah.
where it came.
Now we could draw the lines around this differently, and then they would be much less efficient
That's
than
right.
Amazon,
Sure.
right, or whatever. For
1,000%.
But if we're talking about the genre of the cult documentary,
Mm-hmm.
that sort of is a way that particular filmmakers
Mm-hmm.
have put these things together, because like these people make a Nexium documentary, right?
Mhm.
And we've seen, there's certain
Mm-hmm.
these get released the same places in these ways.
Mhm.
So within that genre, I think if we're trying to say like, well, what's the thing about this documentary and this group?
Mhm.
To me, it's the ways that they take the everyday
Mhm.
things that are very everyday, true love,
Mhm. Mhm. Mhm.
Relationships,
Right.
food, just vague talking about God.
Sure.
I mean, the language of like, I got to find my person, like that's all over,
Sure.
reality love television. That they take all that language and then use it for themselves in this way. That to me is sort of and strategic. I read into it a kind of strategy that is deeper and more thought out and more precise than some of the other groups in the same genre.
Got it. You know what I think?
That might not matter.
No, it does.
That might be like so. I was waiting for you to get. You're like,
but
I have built my tower
who
again.
cares, Mike? I'm just kidding. No, what I think that actually all means, I find I am compelled by what you're saying, and what I think that it means is that we should do an episode on a dating show,
Sure,
like one of your reality shows.
pick one. There, we
We'd
can't
have to figure out which one doesn't have like 55 episodes, like in one season.
Yeah.
They all have a lot. Anyway, what's your takeaway?
I mean, I think
That's it.
I think my takeaway is that I'm not gonna steal your takeaway that I see on the sheet here, but I'm gonna steal your idea of like, I think when you said like that's just Tuesday, I think that these groups that often get labeled as cults, are not inventing anything new. They're just finding, to varying degrees of success, cracks and holes and spaces and needs in our social system in their given moment, whether it's Jim Jones in the 70s or this here. These documentaries are the most valuable as a genre when they allow us a way to talk about those things without keeping them at arm's length. So when we can talk about, and this is where I think Adair's presence is so important, because it keeps the conversation from becoming about just this group, so that we can leave it. I'm like sliding my notebook across the table. This is a visual medium. I can leave it over there with Twin Flames or with whomever.
No, because transphobia was a very big part of the narrative and the rhetoric that was animating a very specific voting base in this election.
But yes, so when these documentaries,
these
documentaries become a way to begin, they become a way to begin a conversation that actually pulls them closer to us, and we can see. Or when there's two people who can point and say, no, this is actually just Tuesday.
They're plugging into the matrix, man.
Then we can begin to, I think then there's a value to them. And so some documentaries are more apt for that than others. And that might be one way to begin to that might be one way to evaluate them is when are these about them, and when is it that we're going to talk about them, but they then take us on a journey back to us. Journey back to us.
That's the subtitle of our second season. Cult favorite.
A journey back to us.
Yeah.
What's your takeaway?
Well, they're plugging into the matrix. The gender binary is super profitable and has been for a long time, but not forever. It's something that we manufactured. Like the gender binary is not a thing that fell out of the sky. Like that's a thing that people created and have made into a big old machine.
I'm changing my cult favorite based on what you just said.
Okay. My cult favorite is to do with Roy Haynes, because he was a jazz drummer. He passed yesterday as of recording on November 12th. So R.I.P. Roy Haynes. Listen to something he did. Like, That's what I recommend as a cult favorite. Trio Music, an improvisational album from 1982 with Chick Corea and Miroslav Vitus is wonderful. But also, if you want to go back older, We Three from 1959, total classic. Phineas Newborn Jr., Paul Chambers, high recommend. So he was a gift, and it is a loss.
Wow.
Yep.
That's great. I don't know anything about jazz. I'm gonna go look at this now. I am making a last minute change. So no, when you said these gender binaries didn't fall from the sky,
Yeah.
my first thought was no, they came over on a boat. And I was thinking about, this is it's an old academic book, but a good one. It's very big, but people should try to look at it anyways. Ramon Gutierrez's book, When Jesus Came, the Corn Mothers Went Away: Marriage, Sexuality, and Power in New Mexico, 1500 to 1846.
Cool.
Yes, it's an excellent book about how the Spanish Empire arrives in New Mexico to a matriarchal society that has sort of serial monogamous relationships and has a whole different political, how gender and sexuality shape a completely different political system, how that is then completely toppled by the colonization, but then after the Pueblo Revolt, briefly reestablished. And so it's an incredible, you can say these things didn't fall from the sky, but it's one of these rare moments where you can just show someone no, here's how this happened in this location.
Sure.
And here's how these gender roles were imposed and then deposed and then reimposed. So it's a awesome, remarkable piece of history. I highly recommend it.
When was it written?
1991.
Okay.
It's been around for a while.
Okay.
But it's one of those books that I read a long, long time ago in grad school, and it's just always stayed with me.
Nice.
So
cool.
that's my
Mike?
That's the most academic cult favorite I've ever had on this podcast.
I mean, it ain't cilantro stems.
True. It's not Love Island season 6 either.
We're just doing all sorts of callbacks today.
At some point, the whole podcast will just be about other episodes of the podcast.
Our brains are in conference season, so they're like heart porridge.
Thanks for listening to Cult Favorite, everybody. You can subscribe to the podcast on Spotify or Apple. Leave us a rating and review. Leave us a comment, and I'll read it. I will.
Out loud. What your real work is to leave so many comments that Mike doesn't feel like he needs to read them all.
I will read them. I'll read Craig's. I'm going to read them like they're affirmations.
Put them on Post-its on your bathroom mirror.
Mike loves the show.
Oh, God.
Special thanks to the Department of Religious Studies at the University of Alabama for microphones and things. If you're interested in pursuing an innovative master's degree that combines social theory and digital tools, look no further than the Religion and Culture Master's Program at the University of Alabama. The program is designed to equip students with a sought-after analytical communication and digital skills that can be applied in any number of careers, while rigorous coursework and original research prepare students for prestigious PhD programs as well. Thank you, Miranda. We'll see y'all in 2 weeks.
I'll see you in 2 weeks. I was sorry.